and ensure fair representation of women. As Jinnah said, no nation can rise to the height of glory unless your women are side by side with you. We begin this occasion with the recitation of the Holy Quran.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful.
يؤتي الحكمة من يشاء ومن يؤت الحكمة فقد أوتي خيرا كثيرا وما يذكر إلا أولو الألباب.
He gives wisdom to whom He wills, and whoever has been given wisdom has certainly been given much good, and none will remember except those of understanding.
صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah. Now, may I please request everyone to stand in respect of the national anthem? We have developed a video to present the context and the various components of this public and private partnership to increase the representation of women in the field of law. May I please request the team to play the video?
The men. No struggle can ever succeed without women participating side by side with men. The legal profession in Pakistan is predominantly male, with women making up less than 5.3% of the members of senior judiciary. The current data of sitting judges of the high courts in Pakistan shows that out of 113 judges altogether, only 6 are women. In 73 years of its independence, no woman has ever been appointed as a judge in the Supreme Court of Pakistan or as an Attorney General for Pakistan. Women also lack any real representation in the bar councils, with only 6 members being women out of a total of 198 members from the 7 bar councils. The number of female advocates in senior level positions or as heads of law firms is also dismal. This inequality in representation of women deprives them from participation in critical decision-making processes and hinders the capacity to provide gender and child-sensitive justice for improving rule of law. Women constitute a 48.76% of the total population, and their proportional representation in all fields is important for socio-economic development. With an aim to address these inequalities, the Federal Ministry of Law and Justice, in collaboration with Group Development Pakistan and Women in Law Initiative Pakistan, is undertaking an initiative increasing women's representation in law, with support from the Australian High Commission and the British High Commission. Under this initiative, the Women in Law Awards shall be institutionalized, a symposium on increasing women's representation in law will be held, a Women in Law web app and portal would be developed as a one-stop data information system about women in law. We believe that increasing women's representation in law will pave the way forward to improve access to justice, rule of law, inclusion at an institutional level. Additionally, this joint action will contribute in achieving SDG 5 to achieve gender equality, SDG 16.2 to end all forms of violence and torture against children, SDG 17 to strengthen partnership for sustainable development.
Thank you for watching. I would now like to request Ms. Nida Osman Chaudhary to share the details of this initiative. Mrs. Nida Osman Chaudhary, a diversity and inclusion advocate as well as founder of Women in Law Initiative. She's a curator and implementing partner of this historic public-private partnership to increase women representation in law. Recently, Ms. Nida has been conferred with an international award in Vienna for her contribution to mainstreaming gender equality and women's representation in law. Over to you.
Thank you, Laiba. Honorable guests, colleagues, students, and friends, it is my utmost and absolute delight to share that Pakistan's historic and first ever public and private partnership between the Federal Ministry of Law and Justice, Group Development Pakistan, Women in Law Initiative, which was supported by the Australian High Commission and the British High Commission for increasing women's representation in law, is now in its final phase of execution and is culminating today with the Symposium on Diversity and Inclusion and Pakistan's first Women in Law Awards 2021. Your presence here not just bears witness to the history in the making, but also creates it as we gather here for this historic endeavor to engage in thematic conversations on diversity, inclusion, access to justice, and fair representation, and for supporting and celebrating all the amazing nominees in women in law whose work has been invisibilized all these years. This project was formally launched last year on 3rd September, and since then we have completed the first ever baseline study on the state of women's representation in law, which is the first ever study of its kind that looks at the data in 4 select segments of the justice sector. So we looked at how many prosecutors we have, we looked at how many women in judiciary we have, how many female advocates we have, and not just women advocates, but also comparing that with how many male advocates we have. So that report is there in your folders. That was the first thing that we worked on. Along with that, we also developed a portal and an app called lawyher.pk. So it's LAWYHER.pk. And I'll share more about that later. But I want to actually say one thing, and that's that dreams do come true. And this project has been a dream in the making, through which we always hope to bring visibility to the work of female legal professionals, but also to mainstream the conversation on fair representation. And counting from the time when this project was just an idea to the point where it was formally announced, and now when it's in its home run, these past 25 months have been an example of sheer hard work, determination, teamwork, synergy, and above all, the resolve of each and every one who has been involved with the project in the smallest of ways for its smooth execution and achievement of its objectives in spite of all the challenges, and I thank all the partners for that. The event will also feature the launch of Pakistan Journal of Diversity and Inclusion, which is Pakistan's first premier international publication featuring original academic legal scholarship on our thematic areas of diversity, inclusion, fair representation, and all of that. A copy of the journal is also available in your folders. The journal, basically, the first edition of the journal this time features the articles that were presented by the authors in response to our call for papers that was issued last year in October. 8 articles on contemporary topics were selected through a rigorous process, and with the support of our authors and a lot of back and forth that my co-editor Sara Raza and I had with a very cooperative authors. They've been so kind to, address all the corrections and edits that we had requested, meeting strict deadlines. So we're very grateful for their support and their contribution towards this debate and dialogue for mainstreaming, fair representation, diversity, inclusion in the justice sector. The 8 articles include submissions by students. Some of them are now have gone abroad for their higher education. We also have submissions from established academics, so it gives space to anybody and whoever wanted to submit and had an idea and a story to tell in a way that was of a quality that was of international standards. So the idea was to give space to these thoughts, and we encourage students to continue writing for us as we hope to take this forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Nida. We will now have a glimpse of the Lawyer website and portal, which was also launched on the 17th June 2021, which to date has been visited by at least 2,200 visitors. May I please request the team to play the video for us?
वफाकी वजारत कानून व इंसाफ ने ग्रुप डेवलपमेंट पाकिस्तान और विमेन इन लॉ इनिशिएटिव पाकिस्तान के ताउन से इंक्रीजिंग विमेन रिप्रेजेंटेशन इन लॉ के नाम से एक अहम कदम उठाया, जिसका मकसद कानून के शोबे में खवातीन की नुमाइंदगी बढ़ाना है। इस कदम के तहत एक वेब पोर्टल lawyher.pk बनाया जा चुका है, जिसमें एक ही प्लेटफॉर्म पर वो तमाम सहूलियात रखी गई हैं जिनके जरिए खवातीन वकला को कानून के शोबे में सीखने और पेशा वाराना तरक्की करने के मौके मिल सकेंगे। lawyher.pk के जरिए खवातीन वकला कानून से मुतालिक आगाही हासिल कर सकेंगी और इन्हें नेटवर्किंग के मौके भी फराहम होंगे। खवातीन वकला की डायरेक्टरी किसी भी शहर में मतलूबा कानूनी अमूर की माहिर खातून वकील की तलाश को मुमकिन बनाएगी। डिस्कशन फोरम पर खवातीन कानून से मुतालिक मौज़ूआत पर अपने ख्यालात का इजहार कर सकेंगी। कानून साजी में खवातीन की खिदमात का अलग सेक्शन बनाया गया है, जिसमें खवातीन वकला की तारीखी खिदमात पर मवाद मौजूद है। इंटरव्यूज एंड अपडेट सेक्शन में खवातीन वकला के इंटरव्यूज और कानून से मुतालिक अपडेट्स शामिल होंगी। यूजफुल रिसोर्सेज वाले सेक्शन से कानून से मुतालिक किताबों और वीडियोस के लिंक हासिल किए जा सकते हैं। इन सब के अलावा ये डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म कानून के शोबे से ताल्लुक रखने वाली खवातीन को आपस में जोड़ने और इनके ख्यालात दुनिया तक पहुंचाने में मददगार होगा और इनकी कामयाबियों और खिदमात का भरपूर अंदाज में इतराफ़ करने के साथ साथ इनकी मुस्बत तशहीर भी करेगा। वफाकी वजारत
Thank you for watching. Please do not forget to register yourself on the Lawyer website. Fair representation is paramount to identify, analyze, and resolve issues with collective perspectives to ensure beliefs are voiced, considered, and represented as part of advancement of justice. Undeniably, increased female representation is directly proportional to enhanced dispensation of justice. Hence, the entire system of delivery of justice needs to be more cognizant of issues of representation. A panel discussion has been organized on the theme of gender equality in the legal profession to address the prevailing challenges to underrepresentation of women in law and propose systematic solutions to it. I have the honor to call on stage or on screen Honorable Retired Justice Nasira Iqbal, Barrister Taimur Malik, Barrister Anisa Agha, and ASP Aisha Gul. May I please request Mrs. Valerie Khan, Gender and Child Protection Expert, to join the stage to moderate the discussion.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Assalamu alaikum, Temur Saib. Thank you so much for joining us online from far away. We really appreciate that. So we would like to use this momentous occasion to start with a key question that I think we're all asking ourselves. And I would like to start this question with Honorable Justice Nasira Iqbal Saiba. What is fair representation?
Thank you for asking, Valerie. You know, it's better to ask the younger people, they have better opinions. But anyway, what I think is fair representation is on both sides, on the bar side and on the bench side. So first of all, I have to say that female lawyers should be representing more people at the bar. I think they have more patience, they have more compassion, and they are more down to earth. But we don't have, I had got the statistics and they were shown here also, that we have 1.5 million lawyers in Pakistan. And out of that, I think there are only 60,000 women, which is a minuscule number if you look at the total. And we had one Advocate General, Punjab, for a month. No Attorney General. So that's representation from the bar side. But on the bench side, we have family court judges, which is a very good thing that was introduced in 1964. And in the Family Courts Act, first there was one woman judge in every district, and since there were not enough women to go around, they would say one woman judge will sit 3 days in one district and 3 days in the other. But now we have 2 females in every district. But it's only just crossing the threshold, and I think this is something which has been an added bonus for women. But when we come to the higher levels, in the district courts, no. Not so many women. In the High Court, only 6, and in the Supreme Court, none, which is a shame. We have to rectify this situation. So that is the representation. No Attorney General so far either. So let's see what we can do.
Thank you so much, Justice Saiba. We know that you have always been there to, bring your voice to the younger voices, actually, that you just mentioned, to remind us all the need to increase women's representation in the justice sector. So shifting to the younger voice that you mentioned, actually, in the legal profession, I would like to ask Anissa Saiba. Women only account for 12% advocate, as Justice Saiba mentioned, in the country, whereas women make up 15% of the members of the judiciary overall in Pakistan. And some of the interlocutors that we talk to sometimes tell us, well, you have 12%, you have 15%, this is fair representation. What are you complaining about? So what would you like to answer to this argument?
Thank you, Valerie. That's a great question. And you're right, it has been frequently asked to us that there are only 12% advocates and 15% women in the judiciary, so why aren't women happy? But when we talk about fair representation, we're not talking about fair representation of female advocates. We're talking about fair representation of 50% women of Pakistan that do not have a voice in the higher judiciary, in the third branch of government. So for us, it's the 50% that should be represented in the higher judiciary. And also, why are we fixated on the idea that it's only advocates that need representation? In other countries where there have been concerted efforts to include more female representation in government or in the judiciary, judges have been appointed from academia, from corporate lawyers, from civil rights activists. So, another thing I would like to mention is that this figure hides more than it reveals, because even by, to my mind, the faulty logic of this question, when we look at the higher judiciary, it's only 6% or 5.8% women in the high courts, and then 0% at the Supreme Court. So even if we were to follow the presumption in the question, women are not adequately represented and definitely not fairly represented.
All right. Timur Saeb, we often hear another argument, especially by your male colleagues, when we call for additional or increased representation of women in the legal profession. We have heard very often male lawyers telling us, well, you know, more women should come forward. What do you think of this statement?
First of all, thank you to the organizers for organizing this important event. And I would agree with what has been stated by Justice Nasra Iqbal and Anisa so far. I think the statement that you have referred to is flawed because we do have women in the profession now. We don't need 1,500 judges. We need a few judges to start with at the higher courts. And we definitely have enough capable female lawyers, in the profession. I would also like to say that in a democracy like ours, we say the parliament is supreme. We have affirmative action at the parliament level. We have reserved seats for women. We are not advocating reserved seats for female judges here, but I just want to draw a comparison and say that when we can have female members of parliament making laws for us, and ensure their representation in the parliament. Indeed, this effort, the Women in Law effort, is also partly led by a female lawmaker, Malika Bukhari. So I see no reason why we can't do something similar in relation to the higher judiciary as well. In relation to my male counterparts at the bar, who say that more women should be involved, I say let's make more space for them, in the bar leadership. Let's make more room for them at the Pakistan Bar Council level. I don't believe there are any elected members of the supreme body of lawyers in Pakistan at this stage. We've had a female advocate general. We've had many female lawyers as members of parliament. So there is no reason why we shouldn't have female judges both at the high courts and in particular at the Supreme Court very soon.
Right. Thank you so much. Let's hope this turns into a reality. Well, we've had good news related to the High Court, actually. We are really happy to announce that one female judge has actually been appointed in the Islamabad High Court by the Judicial Commission of Pakistan yesterday. So hopefully we are getting there progressively. Aisha Gulseba, you are one of the icon women police officers that we all are following up very attentively in Islamabad, and I know you are, you have other peers who are also, dragging attention for making a difference and for showing that actually women's representation in the justice sector matter. I just wanted you to basically share what has been your experience in the police, particularly in terms of access to justice. How has your contribution, or what you've seen or done, you think contributed to maybe more induction of women in the police force?
Thank you so much for the invitation, Valerie. I'm really happy and glad to see this program, first of all, because we are not only in police and judiciary, the prosecution is as much important to cater for women too, because it's just a cycle completely, and it cannot complete unless you have women in police, prosecution, and judiciary. Coming to the question, I would say from the personal experience, the improved access to justice of women, because of more women in police, I would say that's a categorical yes. Because there are hundreds of examples that I can quote where women visited police station just because they knew that there is a female officer sitting in a police station, and they would just come into their office and they can talk whatever they want to. And secondly, I don't know why, but whenever a female police officer is posted somewhere, the news spreads really quickly, and you would see an increased frequency of visitors, not only of females but males as well. So I believe that is the confidence probably they have in the women that, yes, if I go to her office, she would definitely resolve my problem. Secondly, why is that there's generally a large number of female visitors to a women police station than a regular police station? The only reason is because there are only female staff, like if I talk about the Islamabad Women Police Station of Islamabad, all staff is female, and you would see an increased number of female visitors in women police station than a regular police station, because they know that the female staff is there to handle them, and they would be interacting with the female staff, and they would be more comfortable in interacting with them. So that is another indicator that if you have more women in police, there would be more women coming to the police stations to address their problem. Secondly, it's not just about the police stations. If I'm on a law and order duty somewhere outside, the woman would just walk over to me and tell me her problem, that I'm facing this problem and how can I address that. So I would just connect them to the relevant person, even if it's not my jurisdiction. So that is the confidence that they have in women police officers, that whenever they see someone, they would just walk over. And same goes with the presence of women police officers on social media. They interact with us on the social media, they tell us about their problems, and we guide them in the best possible manner that how can they go about to address that problems. So the more and more women you have in police, that would not only improve access to justice to them, but they would definitely, I would say that, giving them an opportunity to directly interact with the women police officers, and like it's a very male dominated profession, police is, and they would see more and more women police officers, so they can opt as a career choice, and at the end of the day they would herself become a police officer if they want to.
Right. So it's true that whenever you see more women in certain fields, you're actually acting also as a model, basically, to inspire further women. And basically, you're translating the possibility into a reality. And that certainly does make a difference for the younger generation. I know that you've been also very closely involved into the establishment of certain pilot initiatives to actually promote and increase this access of women and girls to justice via the establishment of the Gender Protection Unit in Islamabad. Can you explain to us what is the concept of the Gender Protection Unit, and what you think is the biggest strengths of such gender-sensitive setup? Oh. Well, maybe Nasira, if you want, Nasira Saiba, if you want to comment on that, and then Aisha can complement.
First of all, I wanted to comment on what Aisha said. She's quite right. Women are so hesitant to go to police stations if there is no female present there. If there is even one female, they are more confident. But that one female is in a very hazardous position as compared to so many men in the police station. This morning I heard that they are now opening up the series of interns in the police station this morning. So if they allow interns to come there, and if there are 2 interns in every police station and one of them is a woman at least, and there's a woman also posted there amongst the people in the police station, it would make things much better for the woman who is posted there as a police officer, and also for the intern to learn, and for other women to come. Now about the Gender Protection Unit, they have opened all over Pakistan in the district gender-based violence protection units, and that is a very useful, I think, tool for women to go and approach them, but it is not much yet orchestrated or not much purported on the social media or on television, which I think is the thing that everybody watches. And it should be given more promotion and coverage so that more women can approach. But I think gender-based violence or gender protection units basically should be on mobiles, because women who are subjected to violence very rarely get a chance to travel to the place where they are going to seek protection. And if it comes to their doorstep, they have mobile units in KPK, police units registering FIRs. So I think we should have something for gender-based violence or gender protection also in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you. So food for thought, Aisha Saibana, Gender Protection Unit, the one which was established in Islamabad, and maybe soon on mobile unit if we follow as per Justice Nasira's suggestion. Can you explain to us what is actually the specificities of this Gender Protection Unit, which we would like to point out is in process of being replicated in Sahiwal, as well as Peshawar, and if I'm not mistaken, in Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan as well, I believe.
Thank you so much. The idea behind the Gender Protection Unit was the same, that it's a male-dominated society and the females are hesitant to come to police station to address their problems. So the specific feature or the most stark feature of this Gender Protection Unit is that you can call, if you don't want to visit a police station, you can call on the helpline 8090. And by the way, the Gender Protection Unit in the Facilitation Center F6, so it's in the heart of the city. There's an all-female staff deployed there. We have 7 female officers, and the SHO woman also spends most of her time in the Gender Protection Unit. So if a female is facing any problem and she does not want to visit a police station, she can just call on the helpline number 8090, and we have a mobile team. Instead of going the local police station 15 staff, which comprises of the male staff, the female staff of the 8090 comes at your doorstep, and that gets the application from you if you don't want to visit the police station or the Gender Protection Units. So from there, the application is marked to a female officer. So basically the whole idea is that a female should be dealing the complaints or the applications related to females, so that they are more comfortable in that. And I must say that it's performing really well. I think their resolution rate is above 80%, which it started in May and today we are in November. So the success rate is really good. And there's a feedback mechanism as well, that whenever a calls come, we monitor their approach time. We see it in how much time did they reach the destination and how much time did they spend on the destination, what was the complaint. And then an officer calls the complainant and asks whether, are you satisfied with the services offered or not? So whenever we get any sort of negative feedback, we try to correct it and we try to work on it. And as well, you mentioned that there are many other cities that are in contact with us and they want to replicate this project there, because I think in Islamabad is a big city, people are educated and they have a lot more access to the social media, to the media, so they can directly interact with us. But there are cities which are facing this problem, that carrying on the message of the Gender Protection Unit or establishing such a unit is in itself is a big problem for them. So we are working on it. But the idea behind the gender unit is that basically a female officer should be dealing all the procedure that a male officer usually deals in a regular police station, so that the females are more comfortable and they come to us and they bring their problems to us, so we can address the problems in the best possible manner.
So building upon solutions and piloted models of what could be qualified example of good practices, I believe, I would like to go back to Taimur Saib and build upon what you suggested. When you talk about affirmative actions in the parliament that basically help to increase the presence of women and their capacity and possibility to contribute to the decision-making process in terms of lawmaking or legal oversight. When we advocate for this increased representation, and when we say increase, we mean meaningful and safe representation of women in the legal profession, what would you suggest? What do you think are key, pivotal, fundamental measures that ought to be taken to ensure that these suggestions actually turn into a reality, apart from what we've already discussed?
Thank you. Very important question. I'm obviously here as a supporter and a champion of what we are discussing today. I would say that any move in this respect starts not just by nominating female judges to the superior courts, but I think it's an engagement process which needs to be held at every stage. I think the most important thing is that if in any organization we want to recruit a qualified person, whether male or female, you go out, you speak to relevant people and encourage them to apply for certain positions, or you show them the benefits of applying to a certain position. I think that process is missing in Pakistan in relation to increased female representation on the bench. So before we even come to the point whether an affirmative action or some sort of action needs to be taken, I think it's the onus is not just on our judiciary, our bar council leaders, but also generally senior lawyers in the profession to encourage and engage with female legal professionals and encourage them to look towards a career in higher judiciary in the country. I think the mere fact that we don't have any female judge of the Supreme Court perhaps discourages a lot of very well qualified female legal professionals from aspiring for that role. And the low number of, I think just 6 High Court judges across Pakistan is again also not very encouraging. So that process needs to establish. I think there needs to be some sort of positive and conscious feedback from an initiative from all the key stakeholders that we want to see more female judges in the higher judiciary. And that should, really bring forward, qualified and interested candidates who should then be, if we talk about meaningful representation in the superior judiciary, come to be identified as potential candidates for such roles. But I would go one step further and say that, if we can have affirmative action or a quota and make, give that responsibility of lawmaking to female parliamentarians, even if we have to, in the initial years, encourage some female legal professionals and have them on the bench to increase the representation, I don't see why we shouldn't do that. So that's my view, at least. And hopefully people are listening.
Thank you so much. So Anissa, we just heard Taimur define himself as a supporter of the cause, and I think it's very important to mention here that we also value men allies, and that when we talk about increasing women's representation, we talk about gender equality, which also means parity. And we all know who we have in mind when we talk about, standing side by side, shoulders to shoulders, men and women, to actually achieve this fairer societal dynamics. As a woman lawyer and legal expert practitioner, what do you think are the key steps that ought to be taken in order to achieve this parity?
I would agree with Taimur that we need affirmative actions like quotas. We at Women in Law have advocated for quotas in the higher judiciary, whether that's the High Court or the Supreme Court. But the buck shouldn't stop there. We also need quotas for women at bar councils, bar associations. We need a quota for women in the Judicial Commission of Pakistan. And even in the Attorney General's office, the Law Ministry, all of these stakeholders in the justice and the legal sector are important, and we need to ensure that there's representation of women. However, these are short-term measures. We also advocate for long-term measures which should ensure that women stay in the pipeline. So we believe that it's important that law firms also step up, and bar councils should ensure that law firms conform to standards which ensure that women stay in the profession. Now, what do we mean by that? We mean that it should be mandated that maternity leave should be offered to all female lawyers. There should be provision of daycare centers at law firms and legal workplaces. Enforcement of sexual harassment law in law firms and at legal workplaces, in courtrooms, that needs to be enforced. And all of these measures are doable if the bar councils and our male allies at the bar councils and bar associations are willing to push forward these type of reforms.
Right. So an ambitious but also a very tangible program, or very simple measures and targeted specific measures.
Over the years, we have learned that it's not helpful to talk about just encouraging female lawyers. we are setting out what needs to be done, whether that's through a constitutional amendment. Oh, one of the other aspects that could also be tackled is the definition of an advocate Supreme Court. That doesn't need to be done through a constitutional amendment. So we don't need to be held hostage to the idea that it's only if there's a constitutional amendment that we can enforce quota or introduce any sort of affirmative action to get more women to be part of the higher judiciary. These can be done through changes in the rules of the Judicial Commission of Pakistan or the Legal Practitioners and Bar Councils Act and rules. So.
Right, so a lot of work on the regulatory framework as well related to the Judicial Commission of Pakistan or the Bar Council or the Bar Associations. But then, again, I'm coming from a background where we have been discussing with a lot of stakeholders, whether male or women, and I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. So you are asking for change in the regulatory framework, which could include regulations or laws, or even we've been mentioning some constitutional amendments. So my question to you is, we already have seen, as Stamo mentioned, affirmative action to increase the level of women's representation in those law or policy-making bodies. Do you think that ensuring that women lawmakers are actually more present do contribute to actually those kinds of gender-sensitive outcomes and with more inclusive measures or regulatory framework, or not?
Of course, they do. When there have been studies which have looked at the type of measures and the type of actions that women parliamentarians undertake compared to their male counterparts, and those studies and reports show that women do act more. The agenda, when it's driven by women, is centered towards children's rights, towards women's rights, and human rights in general. Another aspect that is very relevant for us is climate action. There are reports which show that if women are part of decision-making bodies, actions are determined in a way that it is better for the planet, it is better for our future. So yes, there is no doubt.
So Justice Nasira Saiba, we then continue the discussion with our male counterparts, and some of them would say, well, why would you really focus on this kind of positive of affirmative actions? If women are competent, if they're really good, they're going to make it. There is no need to take special action. What would you answer to this?
Well, I think as far we started out with our male supporter talking about women's representation in Parliament. And if we don't have affirmative action here, and I'm very glad, Valerie, that you're using the term affirmative action, I would very strongly warn all the lawyers not to use the word quota. This was defined by the lower courts and the High Court, meaning a restrictive number which was allowed. And in Shirin Munir's case, in the Supreme Court said it is not a quota, it is affirmative action which enables women to cross the threshold. Once they have crossed the threshold, they can come on general seats, and if women medical students make it more than 10%, they can occupy as many positions as are available in the colleges. So if I start from there about the affirmative action in Parliament, I would say we do need it because there are very few women who can afford to come in on their own. It's more a question of economic strength than anything else. But the problem we have with affirmative action in the parliaments and the lower legislative assemblies is that it is the men who select the women. And when it comes to offering different proposals, they say, you have been elected by us. You are answerable to us. You have to do what we tell you. I'm very glad that now the women have formed caucuses where all the parties get together. But there are very few women on general seats. The problem is that they very rarely are able, they put up proposals, but they are very rarely able to cross legislation. So until and unless we cross this threshold, I have very strongly advocated this earlier days, but it never came into reality, that women should at least be elected by the general public. And when there's a woman's seat available, they should have a pink box when the general election takes place, men and women. That's the only way we can be mainstreamed. Otherwise, it will be just, marginalized, and it doesn't really mean the same. Women's representation in the legislatures is not effective until and unless they are voted in by everyone and not just by the men.
we have thankfully, thank you for showing the way ahead. It was very also, I would say, not so modern, because as you said, you've been advocating for these measures for quite some time now, but they're still very relevant and very valid, actually, which shows that we still need to do more progress on that. Another concern, and I think I will close with this question before we shift to the question-answer session in the crowd, because it's also important. Michelle, and I just wanted to point out that in the crowd, we have a lot of students from law schools and a lot of young women lawyers and men lawyers as well. So it's really an occasion also for them to actually exchange with you and ask you questions who may, inspire them into the next step they're going to take. Unki mustaqbil ke liye, unki career ke liye kya kar lege, kaise kar lege. I hope that this exchange will give them some insight on that. Some of the public was also saying that, if you want too many women in those decision-making bodies, and especially in the judiciary, you're going to end up having gender-biased decision, which will favor women and which will not uphold the principle of fair trial. Anissa, could you answer this comment?
I think the answer lies in the question itself. I think currently the level and quality of decisions that are coming out are very gender biased. And that is what we're trying to change through advocating for increased representation of women in the judiciary. There are areas of law that have been defanged because of male judicial interpretation of the law, if you look at the sexual harassment law or notable other cases that have come recently, they look at law from a very male lens, and with respect, I think, come to faulty determinations.
Right, thank you so much. So yes, it's about balancing things and not putting the interpretation of the law from one side more to the other, and that is what is missing currently. Pretty much all over the world, by the way. That's an issue in general, and that's
but
a
nowhere
global
0% in the highest.
In the highest. I would like now to go back to the crowd and request our participants to ask any question they would have in mind to the honorable participant of the panel. Anyone with a question? This is an occasion. I know you come from your law school, so use it, avail it to actually ask the burning questions. You have very brave panelists who will be delighted to share with you. Yes. Can you introduce yourself before asking the question?
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sardar Nadir. I'm a third-year law student, and one of the reasons why I wanted to pursue law was to have some gender equality in our country, because I feel like this is one of the best avenues to do so. It is also an honor to get to address the panel. So one of the questions I had is, as we discussed, there's a lot of barriers that come when it comes to inclusion. One of the barriers I feel like that was not discussed is the more social and cultural one. So for example, even if we want more female lawyers, or even if female lawyers want to practice, there's still the barrier from their homes or the fear from themselves, because we are a society that does not treat women that well in our social spheres. So in that regard, is there anything that we can do to have more inclusion from the onset, where we have these female lawyer students have more confidence in the fact that they can go, and because from my interactions, that's something that they have already preset in their mind, that even when they do graduate, there will be so many barriers for them that it will just not be something that is feasible as a career or as a passion or as anything. Thank you.
Who would like to take this question first? Nasira Seba?
Well, I do think that the barriers are coming down. As they say, Joshua and the Battle of Jericho, and the wall came tumbling down. They are coming down. But we have to keep at it all the time. I have been in the profession 30, 40 years ago, and I have seen changes, but you are right, there is harassment to female lawyers in the courts. And it's very difficult. You can't even use this harassment law over there. And the male lawyers feel that this is their domain. They don't want women to intrude into it. And they say, what are you doing here? You go home, you look after your children. And one of the things that was raised here was that there have to be more baby creches. And something that Shaheen raised, she was our first Women's Commission chair, and she said there's no toilets for women anywhere. The first thing you have to do is have toilets for women at the grassroots level. And other thing that comes from grassroots, we used to have much better representation in the local bodies. And it's the local bodies where you deal with the general public. And general public can benefit if there are more women. And there used to be in the previous local government acts. But now I find their number has become minuscule and is being reduced more and more. And they are not even putting in the local government acts into effect. So this is something that we all have to work on. And I think women need to be courageous. If मैं उर्दू में कहूँगी, जो डर गया वो मर गया. और जब मुझे कोई कहता था जी आप जाएं घर अल्लाह अल्लाह जाके करें, आप यहाँ क्या करें, मैंने कहा मैं आपको कुछ कह रही हूँ, मैं तो कुछ नहीं कह रही, आप मुझे कुछ नहीं कहें, मैं अपना काम करूँ, आप अपना काम. So the thing is that you should be ready with repartee if anybody tries to make a mockery at you, because law is very much a male-dominated profession, and not only in Pakistan, all over the world. June Bader Ginsburg, who just died, the Supreme Court judge in the United States, she mentioned how she could not get a law degree from Harvard because they wouldn't admit women. She went to Columbia and she got a law degree from there, and then she came and worked in a law firm and she couldn't even get a job. The same thing. We are not very far behind, and we are, I think, making up much more, because Muslim women, as we have been told, to women is allotted what they earn and to men is allotted what they earn. So I think we have an edge over women all over the world, and if we try hard enough, we can achieve in the legal profession, politics as well, and these both go hand in hand. Unless you are represented in politics, you cannot get legislation for, and also in the bureaucracy. I think that is some place where we have a serious problem. Very few women bureaucrats, and they are the ones who implement or execute the law for everybody, for the women also. And women, gender empathy is very necessary. And who was saying that the females will dominate? That's not possible in the foreseeable future, at least in my foreseeable future. If you can see it happening, perhaps it will happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Aisha, do you want to comment on the social structural barriers that women are facing?
I would like to comment on that, but from the police perspective, that police is as much, there is a misconception about policing as there is about the law profession, I would say. And that is exactly the reason you see less women in police, because when I was not a part of police force, I had certain misconceptions about it. But once I became part of it, I got to know that how police works, and there are good and bad persons in every department, just like in police. So just because of you, and most of the biggest misconception that I came across was that people make their perception about police on a second-hand experience. They would not have had interacted with the police, but just because someone else interacted with the policeman and he does not know what were the circumstances in which that person interacted with the police, and usually people show you only one-sided picture. They don't depict the true picture, that what was the police stance or what was the person's stance. So the problem, sociocultural barrier is there, and the solution lies in the increasing the women in police force. And for that, obviously, you need to increase the women police force by creating more seats for them. And I would go to the extent and say that even you have to lenient the criteria a bit for the women. The government should do that till you achieve a significant number of women in your police force. And for senior officers, I would say that you need more and more women on command positions so that they prove themselves that they are equally eligible as their male colleagues to perform the same duties, and that would automatically create the role models for the younger generations when they see a woman police officer performing the duties. And for the junior ranks, I would say that give them postings close to their homes, and the daycare center was mentioned, and that is very important because once a woman is mentally if she's occupied with the household problems, she cannot focus on her duties. So provide them the good working environment. Recently, I was on an event yesterday and someone was telling me that a recruitment was announced in Sawat Police, and that organization, first of all, they propagated that message by targeting female specific groups like in universities, seminars. And the best thing that they did was that they went a step ahead and they registered the females who were interested in the recruitment. And they guided the whole procedures about, and what tests they would go through during the recruitment process. So a lot of females, I think that is the way, that is the initiatives that we need in more and more cities to propagate these messages and then to train women about like how police works and what are the options for them. So I think these are some of the steps that could be taken to reduce that socio-cultural barrier that you talked about.
Thank you so much. Is there any other question in the crowd? Yeah.
My name is Dua and I'm a second year law student. So I have a question. When I'm done with law school and there are many challenges young lawyers, not gender biased, they have to face. What are the specific challenges female lawyers have to face? And with your years of experience, how would you suggest we tackle them?
Okay, so to answer this question, we'll have a female as well as a male perspective, actually, because it would be interesting to have both. Anissa?
I actually think there's not that much of a difference in the first few years of graduation when it comes to male and female law associates. But it's once you've spent a couple of years in the profession that you start facing more and more challenges. And it's because of the lack of any support given by the profession to female lawyers that the distance between the career trajectory of male lawyers and female lawyers starts increasing. And to my mind, it's because from the outside it looks like it's a level playing field, but it's really not. And it's not because of these very reasons, because there's no maternity leave, because there are no daycare centers or any provision of childcare, and equally because there is no enforcement, protection, or even understanding of sexual harassment law at law firms and at legal workplaces. So to my mind, those are the major challenges that female lawyers face.
Right, thank you. Taimur, as a male lawyer, what do you think are that was coming from a law student, a young one, what do you think the female lawyers will face as challenges, and do you have any solutions to those?
I think Anissa has rightly pointed out some of the key challenges, but I would like to look at the opportunities that are there. And it's very important to clarify that, in Pakistan, we often associate practice of law with just litigation. That's not a correct view, right? So the profession also includes legal academics. It includes now an increasing number of in-house roles, includes corporate lawyers, includes lawyers who are involved in the field of arbitration. And all these fields, we are seeing more and more qualified female legal leaders. So I would say that, don't be discouraged by any of the challenges. Look at the opportunities. At times, your male counterparts may not want to move in-house, but that's where some of the greatest opportunities are and will be in the years to come. The thing that, as the panelists mentioned earlier, that we should also do away eventually with with elevating judges just from the litigation bar. I think if the United States can have judges from academia, from research, from universities and other spheres of the legal profession, so should we. So you have to create these opportunities. A couple of tangible points that I would like to add to what was mentioned earlier. I think technology is going to be a great enabler. So I'm joining this panel and privileged to be doing so virtually. I think that compared to what Miss Aisha has to face in the police force, I think our female counterparts have less of a challenge because they can actually practice in their own town, in their own city for as long as they want. They won't get transferred out to other cities, so which makes things more difficult. Uh, and I think in terms of our courts, we are headed in that direction, but perhaps we should help enable that more quickly, that there should be ability to take part in court proceedings virtually. I know it's happening, on an ad hoc basis at the Supreme Court level and in some high courts, but that needs to become a norm. And I think that would really reduce some of these challenges and enable more active female participation at the litigation level. In that respect, I would also like to point out enrollment at the Supreme Court bar for female lawyers. I think there are about only 120 or 130 active advocates, female advocates of the Supreme Court out of 3,000 something enrolled at the moment. That's an abysmally low number, right? And that's one tangible action that the judiciary and our bar council should take. And it takes years at the moment, if you have met the minimum criteria to become a Supreme Court advocate, to get enrolled as a Supreme Court lawyer. I think in the case of female applicants, one, they should be encouraged, not just from the major cities, but from all across Pakistan, to apply for enrollment at the Supreme Court. And secondly, they should be given priority in that, and without delay. It's not very encouraging to have to wait years to get what should be a right. In our neighboring country, India, if you're a lawyer all the way up to the Supreme Court. And indeed, that's true in the United Kingdom as well, and in many other jurisdictions. So I fail to understand why we have this barrier for male and female lawyers, but in particular, to enable female litigation lawyers, we must take corrective action in this respect soon.
Thank you very much, Timur. Another question from the crowd. We have two questions, and we received another question online. So we have three questions on the side. Yes, please, on my right, and then the second one afterwards.
Me, Farah Nazawan, advocate, High Court, Islamabad. I want to share my personal experience here. I was appointed as Assistant Attorney General in High Court Islamabad lastly 2019, and unfortunately I denotify after 2-3 months without any reason and replace me with male lawyer. And at this time, no any lady lawyer who was working in courts as attorney. So I want just my personal experience in this forum. So this is not equal representation about female lawyers. Thank you.
शुक्रिया बहुत आपका. Next question जी. वो इस तरफ से जी. इधर भी. अच्छा उसके बाद जी जी.
Good afternoon to everybody sitting over here, our guest and our host. My name is Khadija Malik and I'm in the final year of law. My father is also a lawyer, so I join up to his chamber and I've seen things deep down. First of all, I would refer to Madam Aisha, which she said that because of the female courts and the police stations, a lot of women are coming up. And I would say that the theory of deterrence can be followed up because the crime rate will decrease, because people will avoid doing all these crimes, because when they will see that women are coming up and they're coming over for their rights, and then, gradually, eventually all of the civil society and with collaboration with all the government, the things will be settling down. And another suggestion from my side is that all the ladies sitting up on the higher posts, they should need to tell their experiences to everybody, so that the women who are trying up to reach this level, they can know how can they find up their home justice and the problems going on in the society, and all the other issues can be tackled. And as we are living in the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, and we need to focus upon how Hazrat Khadija and Hazrat Aisha, they were empowered, we need to look down their theory and bring it up to our government. We know that is the most important thing, bringing it up, because when we focus everything over Islam in our country, and this is the main thing, you need to give dominance to the woman as well. And when they apply for the Supreme Court, they end up saying, oh no, you're not eligible because you have not done this and you're not done that. That is because you don't give them the stage to do it. Even in the high court, they say you're not eligible for this. Even in the lower courts, you don't even give the cases to them. So how can you say that they're not eligible? You've not given up the platform. So that's how we will take collaboration, and this is our first step and the first initiative to do this, and inshallah we'll end up achieving our goals. Thank you very much.
Wow. Very inspiring intervention. We had a question on this side, Ji.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hafza Amna. I'm Assistant Professor, Department of Law, Bahria University. Formerly, I have been serving at the Ministry of Law and Justice as well as the Parliament, Senate Secretariat as a legislative advisor. So, having my experience, background of legislative drafting, I would like to share that while drafting the laws, there are no policy making and there is no national consultation. The women are not taken in the loop whenever there is any law made, even if it is made on the topic of sexual harassment. The people are not consulted, so I would like to add a comment that there should be a national consultation. And and one more experience that I would like to share, when I was working and why I quit the job, because one of the main reason for leaving the job was कि female तो 4 बजे घर को चली जाती हैं, उसने तो बच्चों को देखना है. So don't recruit a woman on such a big position, because that will decay our decision making process. So when a female officer is there, it should not be recruited until and unless she's unmarried. And if there is a married woman, she would be handling her kids, so she will leave at 4 o'clock, so she should not be hired.
That is the perception of it. This is what you are recommending.
And that's the perception, but I'm
the perception.
That perception should be changed.
Okay.
And one observation was regarding the national consultation for legislative drafting and taking the female into the loophole and mainstream consultation.
Right.
So these were my comments.
Okay, thank you. Just for the sake of awareness, notwithstanding reservations at all, I just wanted to point out that the presidency a few months ago organized a national consultation with mostly women lawyers and women politicians to review actually the set of legislation that has existed in Pakistan, and has actually requested women lawyers and lawmakers and ombudsperson as well to give their suggestion on what, according to them, was still problematic in terms of gender equality and women's rights, and what needed to be done further in terms of legislation. But point well taken for additional consultation on women in the legislative process. Yes, our next question here. Can you please switch your mic on?
Online on the Android sets. If it is available, that would be more convenient.
Right, we're using new technologies. All right, G. Kindly introduce yourself, please, before speaking.
Hi, everybody. This is Sana Ahmed from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. I'm an advocate, District and Session Court, Peshawar, and today representing my organization here, Blue Veins, which is one of the nominee today for the award. So, based on my experience, because we are discussing some kind of, the issues which women faces and which are actually the barriers in the inclusion, I would like to ask everybody, especially from the panel, that based on my experience and, seeing around the issues, I believe that financial issues and financial restrictions, when you enter into the field, is one of the key barrier which really demotivates females who are coming from different socioeconomic backgrounds, especially from the low income families. It really demotivates them, to continue or pursue their career in the field. Because I have seen personally when we were doing, after the degree you have to do an apprenticeship in the court to get your license. So then you can be, eligible for the practice, and you get a license in the district court. In the start, there is no incentive, there is no economic support, there is no financial support provided. And I think that females I know that male, female both face issues, but I believe that females who are coming from the socio-economic backgrounds and from the marginalized communities, and especially from the poor families, for them it is really difficult, to manage everything on their own. So I think that if you people can also suggest it, what government or a bar council or associations can do to support or at least provide some kind of incentives to women who are just new into the field, and especially the field which is very male dominated and where it is very difficult to make your space, and it takes, I think, years, so you can be an independent lawyer. So it's my question from everybody, and especially from the panelists, that what are your suggestions? Can government can do anything in this regard? How females can be provided any kind of support just in the start, so at least we can motivate them to pursue their career in the law field and come forward.
Thank you, Sama. Justice Nasira Seba, what can we do to facilitate economically those young
Thank you
women?
very much, the young lady from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and I have experienced this problem myself, because when I went into the legal profession and I started apprenticing with a firm, they wouldn't give me anything. I was doing all the drafting and no compensation. And this is the problem. But you see, the Legal Practitioners and Bar Councils Act has a specific provision that, like you provide 10% to your munshi. So munshi ana agar de sakte hai, to why not to the apprentices? And they make the women carry their books. The leader of the chamber wouldn't take me to the court because he thought I knew more and he didn't want to have any kind of interception of that kind. But the problem is that we should put into effect the legal councils Legal Practitioners and Bar Councils Act, and for the apprentices there should be a portion of the fee which has been received, and in every case one of the interns should be prepared, because what happens is, and now I'm very glad that this has come online and you can argue a case wherever you are, that when a senior lawyer knows that he is not likely to win the case, he will say, I'm busy in Peshawar, I can't come to Lahore and can't go to, and somebody will come and get an adjournment, and that will probably be the female intern. So I think that we need to have more interns trained in every case, and it should be mandatory part of the Legal Practitioners Act that if the senior advocate is not present, one person in the chamber should be prepared. And when they are prepared, then they have to be paid, obviously. There's nothing like a free lunch. And there should be a portion of the fee that has at least 10% of the fee that the senior advocate takes, because this is a problem which is faced universally, at least in Pakistan, in all the courts, that the apprentices or the interns don't get any part of the fee of the senior advocates. But it can be cured now, and particularly because we have online and this kind of facility.
Thank you so much, Nasira Saiba, for your insight. Last question from the crowd, and then we'll take the one online question which was shared with us. Okay, all right. No, go first. No, we do gender equality. Pele up, appear uske baad, and then we will close. Just two more, and then we'll stop there.
I clearly didn't want to take some space time away from someone. My name is Mike Jetty. I'm with the U.S. Embassy. I'm the resident legal advisor. And I have one comment and one question for the panel. My comment for everyone, can you guys all hear me okay? The one comment I have for you all, I've been practicing law for 20 some odd years in the United States, and especially for the females, is unfortunately you have to advocate 24/7. When you're at home with your friends, you need to advocate 24/7. You're going to be an advocate for the rest of your life. And unfortunately, this is an issue that's always going to need you to forward lean on. You always need to forward lean on this issue and get help, get friends and get caucuses and get friends and communities and your groups. And my one question for the panel is, I'm with the U.S. Embassy, and we do things like Jessup Moot Court. I'm not here to recruit, but whoever is in law school needs to join up for the Jessup Moot Court. We also do training for judges and prosecutors. I'm also encouraging every young lawyer to sign up to be a prosecutor, because I think prosecutor is the number one job in our society. The rule of law is so important. But the question I have for the panel is, what can the U.S. Embassy and or the diplomatic corps do to help with the local bar, with the Pakistani bar? Not just with prosecutors or with judges, but just with the bar itself, because we're here to advocate and here to offer assistance to make sure the rule of law is established and is encouraged, and especially for female representation. So what can we do to make your job easier?
That's a question to the panel. Who would like to take that question? Anissa?
Sure. Like we said, our main concern is that the judiciary, the Judicial Commission of Pakistan, and the bar councils, they should listen to us and implement the changes that we are recommending. So any assistance in the form of adding to our voices for increased female representation in the legal sector would be appreciated. And then in terms of the tangibles that we have laid down, whether that's maternity leave or provision of daycare centers, those are obviously financial measures and would require funding. So any funds that can be set up in conjunction with the Bar Council and the registrar of the high courts. I mean, this is just off the top of my head. Usually my focus is on the state bodies of Pakistan. So
okay. Well, I think what we need to acknowledge is that we thank the US Embassy for asking how they can help. I think there is value in sharing experience because gender discrimination and the ceiling for women is actually a global issue which we're facing in every country. So I think there is, first of all, value in sharing how, the best practices, how we models of overcoming that. How did people, especially women lawyers or bar association from the US, did overcome that? That would be one interesting aspect. And then, Justice
Can I add to what could be helpful is, for women, to begin with, they're a little bit hesitant to come into the bar rooms because of not having any childcare centers. That is something that you can help with because it needs financing and also toilets, which is a big problem for women. But the third thing is that mentioned already that you are having training sessions for women judges, particularly of the family courts. That's very important. And in-house counsels. I know that the US Embassy also engages in-house counsels. Asma Jahangir was the in-house counsel for the US consulate in Lahore. So, and women are very much more sensitive to the input of the job or assignment they have. If they are given these kind of places where they don't have to initially face the public all the time, I think that it would be advantageous to the organizations, particularly an organization like yours, where you do have in-house women councils to advise you. It would be very much, I think, an advantage to the women also.
Thank you. The other question on this side?
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मेरा नाम नीलम चट्टान है और मेरा ताल्लुक़ सवात से है। मैं फाइनल ईयर की स्टूडेंट हूँ और मैं सोशल वर्कर भी हूँ और साथ में रिसर्च कर रही हूँ विटनेसेस प्रोटेक्शन पर। मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि मैंने ख़ुद अभी ज्वाइन किया है, तो मैंने देखा है कि जो ख़वातीन वकला हैं वो 8 या 10 होंगी, वो मर्द हजरात पे डिपेंड कर रही हैं, उनके केसेस कर रही हैं, उनको कोई केस ही नहीं दे रहा है। क्रिमिनल और सिविल तो बिल्कुल ही नहीं मिल रहे हैं, जस्ट फैमिली केसेस वो उनको बहुत कम मिल रहे हैं। तो ऐसे क्या इक़दामात उठाने चाहिए उनके लिए कि उनको भी क्रिमिनल और सिविल केसेस में रिप्रेजेंटेशन मिले? थैंक यू।
आप जवाब दे सकते हैं दोनों? ठीक है।
अच्छा, मैं पहले जवाब दे दूं। पहली बात तो ये है कि आपको पता है कि हर अदालत में स्टेट काउंसिल होते हैं। जब मैंने पहले शुरू की थी प्रैक्टिस, आई डिडंट नो एनीबॉडी, आई डिडंट नो व्हाट टू डू, सो आई वेंट टू द एडवोकेट जनरल्स ऑफिस एंड आई सेड जी मुझे स्टेट केसेस दे। 100 रुपए एक केस की फीस होती थी, अब 5000 रुपए देते हैं स्टेट काउंसिल को। तो एक तो अपने नाम आप वहाँ जाके लिखा दे एंड इट्स नो प्रॉब्लम, आपको केस मिलेंगे। अब तो उन्होंने एक पैनल बनाया हुआ है, तो उसमें वो डिसाइड करते हैं कि अगर उनके पास 50 नाम आए हैं तो इनमें से कौन कर सकता है। लेकिन स्टेट केसेस में ये है कि आपको कुछ ना कुछ तो मौका मिल जाएगा करने का। अब आप कहते हैं आपका ताल्लुक स्वात से है, हाँ, तो स्वात से भी पिछले दिनों ट्रेनिंग ऑफ फैमिली कोर्ट जजेस वहाँ खैबर पख्तूनख्वा के जुडिशल एकेडमी में मैं करके आई हूँ पिछले हफ्ते ही। And the women are so smart. And actually in this awards jury that I saw, I was amazed the bounds and leaps which women have taken. And there's no reason for you to feel apprehensive that you can't stand on your own. You can. And if there are female lawyers and they engage female interns in their chambers, and I know Nahida Mehboobullah used to do it here in Islamabad, and there are more and more women's chambers which are opening up, and if you go and talk to them, I'm sure that there is advantage everywhere, even in places like Swat, because there were many female judges who had come from Swat, and if you go to their courts, it's good to be encouraged to go and do female cases. It doesn't matter to begin with, and once you start on it, constitutional and criminal law will come to you automatically.
कुछ और ऑप्शंस भी है, शायद आपने सुन लिया कि आप वुमेन इन लॉ lawyher.pk का ये भी ज्वाइन कीजिए, और उसके अलावा और फोरा है जो कि ऑनलाइन है, सच एज वकील ऑनलाइन, कोचिंग द लोन कानूदान की तरफ, ये सारे प्लेटफॉर्म्स भी आपके लिए प्रोजेक्शन और नेटवर्क भी हो रहा है. तो मेरा ख्याल है इस तरीके से ये केसेस इंक्रीज हो जाएगी. और दूसरी बात है, हमारे सब स्टेक होल्डर्स का ड्यूटी बनता है कि हम लोग भी हाईलाइट करते हैं कि इस केस ट्रायल करने के लिए हम लोग ने एक फीमेल लॉयर्स के साथ भी कोलैबोरेट किया. ये बहुत खासूसी कदम है और इंशाल्लाह हम लोग ज़रूर कर लेंगे. थैंक यू वेरी मच. The last question that we received from, the very last one, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for allowing this concession. I just want to introduce, I'm Rahat Konain Hassan. I've been in this field of law for over around 27, 28 years. Right now, I'm heading Competition Commission of Pakistan the second time. Just wanted to share that in the next the Women's Day, we would be holding a competition policies with the gender lens focus. That's what we intend to hold. And I would invite all of you to come there. And the whole secret about women empowerment is having clarity as to what you want, number one. Number two, making choices. You always have a choice, either to give in or to become a victim or to work for a change. Equality, when you talk of, then give up your privileges. Don't expect special treatment. And the best way to lead is to take more and more responsibility. It is not possible that when you work more than others, you would not get your recognition. These are the key things I would like to share. I'm sorry that I'm in taking your time, but it was important to make this comment, and I'd welcome you. Thank you.
Don't be sorry, we are really grateful that you took our time. Shukriya. So now we'll close this session with a burning question, but I think it's important that we put it out on the floor. Taimur, please don't be mad at me. There was a woman petitioner, we've all heard about that, who was beaten by some male lawyers in Malia Court the day before yesterday or yesterday. She had brought a complaint against a lawyer who used to be her husband. And the question is, what about the trend arising of lawyer taking, law into their hands and behaving in a violent manner? Should we raise, how can we increase not only inclusion, but also the notion of rule of law, but also peace and tolerance, the notion of decent interaction and agreeing to disagreeing within the lawyer's environment. So I'll start with Taimur on that, because I know you've been very active on that topic on Twitter lately.
I hold the bar councils and the bar leadership responsible for this fairly and squarely. I think they have allowed a mindset of professional tribalism to seep into the legal profession, and this kind of behavior is the result of that. I would also say that this kind of behavior, because it discourages inclusion, it discourages the notion of a fair justice system. It's perhaps on a higher level, than the crimes or the corruption charges that we talk so much about. Right, so we talk about disqualification for life. We talk about a lot of things which are perhaps in comparison less significant. So I would expect that not only should the Bar Council and the Bar Association take take appropriate action. People who indulge in such behavior are in fact recorded on camera as well, should not just have their bar licenses cancelled, but should also be taken to task otherwise. And we as a society should look at that, and we should ask for such accountability to be undertaken swiftly, and justice should not only be done, it should be seen to be done in these kind of cases. So it's not about a female victim in this case, but just anybody, and lawyers who are supposed to be officers of the court behaving in this manner. This is just unacceptable.
Thank you so much, Tamer. So I also would like to point out that the president of the Sindh Bar Association has officially requested an investigation and an inquiry into the matter. Thank you so much for your insight. बहुत शुक्रिया सबको और मैं अभी माइक को दोबारा लाइबा को वापस देती हूँ जी.
As a young female lawyer, the solution proposed by Ms. Justice Nasira Iqbal has personally enlightened me with her experiences and the solutions she found to it. Hence, it is always fruitful to interact with seniors and learn from the directions they undertook. We thank our panelists for engaging in a solution-based discussion to combat gender inequality in the legal profession. We are sincerely hopeful and pray that the legal profession will progressively incorporate the proposed solutions and become one of the most diverse, inclusive, and fairly represented profession in the nation. We are pleased to invite you for lunch outside the lobby. Thank you.
And please don't forget, after lunch, please come back, because then you have the presentation of papers. Thank you so much.